Creativity isn't a goal, it's a way of living. The thing is, we've been told the opposite, that it's about outcomes, milestones, getting ahead. And yet the moment that you believe that, you start trading life itself for the illusion of progress, the endless to-do lists, the constant measuring, and the treadmill that feels like forward motion, but keeps you stuck in the same place. Now, the modern internet tells us that to achieve a goal, you have to work harder than everyone else, suffer more than anyone else, and strip your life of the very things that make it worth living. And most of us fall into this trap. This idea of relentless hustling has become so mainstream that it feels almost unchallengeable. But the paradox is this: far more people quit their projects than ever complete them. Every year, many of us look back and cringe when we look at the hopes we had at the beginning. So what's really going on here? The problem isn't that you have a lack of motivation or even a lack of talent. The problem is that we've become an outcome-based culture. We're taught, if I just achieve this, then that will happen. And therefore, motivation becomes tied entirely to reaching a particular end. And you tell yourself, if I can bear the suffering long enough, I'll just get there. But reality doesn't bend to your will. And as the goal drifts further and the pain increases, you're locked into an unlivable equation. The harder you chase, the less alive you feel. And it's just not that the goal is receding, it's the life itself is vanishing in its pursuit. And that's the consequence of the lie that we're sold. If you subscribe to this Darwinian version of reality, you'll only ever feel its harshness. You'll miss the effervescent experience of living inside your potential, which, in my experience, is where creative energy comes from. So in this goal-orientated pursuit, all things that sustain you, fresh air, exercise, noticing the world, love, time away from the goal itself, companionship, all get excluded. You cut yourself off from the very conditions that not just make life worth living, but from where breakthroughs are actually born. And it's such a stupid idea that you have to be miserable to achieve anything. And if you never challenge it, you'll never unlock another way of creating and another way of living. So let's talk about the tension at the heart of creative life. On the one hand, creativity as goal, something to achieve, to tick off, to win. And on the other hand, creativity as a way of living, something to embody, nurture, and feed every day. Too often, we're told to sacrifice these things for the goal. Give them up now, and at the end of the rainbow, you'll have them in infinite abundance. So you say no to dinners, to connection, to love, and you live in obsession. And what happens? Life itself becomes the sacrifice. The lie that you're sold is that if you're living now, you're not living up to yourself. It's the old flagellant vision resurrected. The belief that you must punish and deny yourself to deserve God or whatever dream or business that you're trying to create. And to my mind, hustle culture is like Calvinism reborn as a dystopian Frankenstein. And it doesn't just eat away at you, it gnaws at the very heart of society itself. Now, this isn't about rejecting ambition. It's about questioning the belief that total sacrifice is the only path to it. We've come to believe we can cut the time frame to any goal simply by obsessing more about it and giving up more of ourselves. But here's the paradox. So many of the goals we're chasing today aren't even our own. They've been shaped by other people's obsessions. Take social media, for example. A whole society hypnotized into spending a disproportionate amount of the hours it has on this earth on the promise of a dream life. Yes, I get it that there's an art to these games, but in the process, a part of your existence gets sold off to an algorithm designed to improve someone else's existence. And before you even realize it, your dream has been turned into a commodity, packaged, priced, and sold back at you. As such, there is a goal that is chased, and yet the more you obsess, the more it drifts away into the future. And that's the strange irony at the heart of it all. If the treasure at the end of the rainbow can never be reached, might it not be worthwhile to stop and enjoy the rainbow itself for a while? The consequence of chasing these goals tied to outcomes we can't always control, is that we split ourselves in two. On the one hand, there's the fantasy version of who we might become if we just never give up. And on the other, the longer we chase, the more exhausted we become and the less able we are to keep up with the pursuit. And so the trap closes. Either you give up and feel crushed, a failure for not having the strength you thought everyone else had, or you double down and sacrifice more. You hunger, you deny yourself joy, you swear you'll show the world. But life doesn't care about your obsessions. It owes you nothing. Even if you reach the goal, the validation will never fill the hole you were running from in the first place. The paradox is that hole, that part of you that never felt complete, will never be answered by the internet. It will only ever be answered by the one thing that the internet takes away from you: the capacity to live more and to experience life deeper. So I'm not saying we shouldn't push. Push and pull are part of the journey. I love my work and I want more of it, not less. But if we never stop to ask who we are while we're chasing the dream, who will we even be when we finally achieve it? When I look at the madness of the world, I see everywhere a society that seems to be disconnecting from its humanity in favor of a digitalized self that wrests us away from that very humanity. For me personally, on my recent road trip, I realized my creative life had become too fixed to deadlines, too attached to digital outputs, and not enough about the joy of creating itself. What I found on the road was that a certain tension lifted in me. I stopped trying to keep up with an impossible version of myself, and my mind emptied and new energy came in, and it reminded me that your best work arrives not from forcing an unbudging future, but from daring to be more present, more alive, more in this moment, more committed to life as it is right here before you. So whereas hustle culture pushes obsession as its chief value, I think that immersion is closer to the way that I'm trying to live. You might ask, in any situation, how can I be in this more? And for me, that applies to anything from a creative project to a relationship. And so let me think about this difference between immersion and obsession. So obsession narrows life, strangles it even. Whereas immersion, it deepens your life, it expands it. When you immerse, creativity fuses with living itself. You notice more. You allow space for energy to replenish itself so that you're going into the next day powered up and just with that sustenance that only comes from that lived experience of being in the world. And in that space, work arises of its own accord. You're attracted to do the things you love or imagine rather than trying to keep up with them as boxes only to ever be ticked on your to-do list. So over the last month, I didn't push, I lived, and creativity found me anyway, not as an obligation, but as a form of joy of being in life. And it reminded me that creativity and life are in constant conversation with one another. You don't grow only by locking yourself to the goal. You grow through the way that you live that goal too. If You box creativity. In my experience, at some point it seems to wither, but if you live with it, it brings you alive again. So let me leave you with this. Part of discovering your creative process is actively challenging the programming of the internet. To live your life fully, to love, to be present, doesn't make you less. It makes you everything that a person has the potential to become. You'll be told you have to sacrifice joy to achieve your dream. You don't bloody well believe it. The consequence of that, of sacrificing that joy, is that one day you'll wake up trapped in a joyless existence, your identity bound not to who you are, but to whether your goal has manifested or not. You are not just the outcome. You are the living being working towards it. The outcome doesn't make you a failure or a success. How you live as you create, that is what defines you. That's who you become through the act of doing it, irrespective of the outcome. So whatever stage of your project or dream you're at, stop obsessing over the vagary of the goal only. Get down to the business of living itself. That is your birthright. And that is how you participate deeper in this one-time miracle we are born into. That is worth paying better attention to, because even as I speak, the clock is ticking. Creativity isn't a goal, it's a way of living.